Welcome to the Performance Enhancing Podcast. It's like steroids for your brain. A podcast for people looking to live life at their peak potential, chock full of real-world tools and knowledge that you can apply in your life today. By providing you with a lens into the lives, beliefs, practices, and actions of those who are already living extraordinary lives, the Performance Enhancing Podcast will help you shift your mindset or create that change in your daily rituals and habits so you can explode with success in the areas of life that are most important to you. So get ready for another dose of Performance Enhancing Podcast with SatoriPrime. Here's your host, Ilan Ferdman.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Performance Enhancing Podcast with your host, Ilan Ferdman. To say that I'm excited for today's episode would be a complete and utter understatement. This is hands down the best interview, in my opinion, that I've done so far in the Performance Enhancing Podcast, and it's with a gentleman by the name of Steve Sisler, who's a behavioral profiler. To me, it was almost an education on the way humans behave, what we can learn from each other's behavior. I just sat here. You'll probably hear me at times wowing. It was just like being with a supremely talented person and getting a free consultation. So you'll kind of get to listen in on that. Just a couple of things that you want to know of what we cover. He breaks down human beings by their behavior into 4 categories: mad, glad, sad, and scared. So we'll talk about that. He also shared this incredible line, which is that we don't see people as they are. We only see people as we are. We'll talk about that. That was just a mind-blowing concept. We'll talk about love languages and the relationships in your life and how it can completely alter that. Impatience is a sign of flexibility. Yep, never heard that before. That was a huge insight. And are you a real entrepreneur? That was a cool conversation we touched up on in part 1. And finally, how to deal with anyone's emotional need. And by filling that emotional need, you can pretty much solve any problem. So enjoy my interview, or at least part 1 of my interview with Steven Sisler. Again, hands down, my favorite episode to date. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I have a very, very special treat for you guys today. We have a great, great guest today, Steve Sisler, who is going to bring something to this episode that we've never really had here before. You guys all know Guy and I are obsessed with language and its effect on humans. Well, Steve is like a Jedi when it comes to reading human beings. I think someone called you what? An intuitive savant? So Steve, welcome to the show.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
I basically sat offline right now for the last, God knows, 20, 30 minutes trying to convince Steve to put a product together that can actually help people. So I'm going to, during this next hour here or whatever we're going to spend, you guys are going to realize why this is so important to me. So Steve, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself and what you do, and then we'll kind of jump into the nitty gritty.
Okay. Well, I'm a behavioral profiler. I work with clients in about 18 countries, basically helping them what I call a 3-stage process: uncover, discover, recover. So it's an uncovering of how am I wired, how do I work, what comes natural to me, and my goal is to help them to do what they are so that they'll never work again. But you know, I'm the I'm the typical sand kicked in the face kid growing up. Became a bodybuilder when I was young. Basically harassed, shoved, name called, beat up every day for 9 years. I mean, that was my history. So I kind of came out of those formative years wanting to help people.
Wow.
And so, I was beat up by girls, which is really weird because I know it's weird because I'm telling CEOs what to do all over the world. So it's the craziest thing. I'm the most unlikely person to have been where I am right now. But I have a gift with people and reading people, and I kind of realized that late. As soon as I started trying to capitalize on that, it just took off. So I came into my niche at age 40.
Wow.
And so...
what were you doing before?
Before that, I went to high school. I got out of high school. I went to seminary, of all places, just because I wanted to help people. Get out of there, and then went into business as a painter I'm a faux finisher. I'm an artist. So I got into the painting world and had a custom painting business for 18 years. But what was happening was I'd be spending hours with the people I was wanting to work for, helping them with all their problems. That was the fun part. And then I'd have to go to work doing the technical side and miss sharing with the people. My wife one day said, "You got to get paid to talk to people." And I'm like, no one's going to pay me to talk to them.
Wow.
Well, boy, was I wrong.
Yeah. It's interesting. You said you were the most unlikely, and I actually look at that history. I feel like you're the most likely because you experienced maybe pain is the right word, but the pain of growing up that way and being the guy that was picked on by both boys and girls. I feel like those people become very observant of their surroundings out of a necessity to protect themselves.
Sure.
And, here you are. So you kind of have...
I developed this human echolocation. That kept me alive.
Amazing. So tell people, let's go into the technical stuff. So how do you do this? Because that sounds great. Okay, I read people hear that a lot. How does that happen?
Well, I mean, you mean now in the business?
Yeah, now in the business.
Well, I mein, as the way my business is set up, I mean, people come through, they contact me and I put them through two different behavioral analyses, whatever one they choose, one's longer than the other. And these are tools that have been mastered over the centuries, basically, but last 40 years have done a lot of research in these tools. And I adopted these tools, self-branded them. They're algorithms which locate emotions and where they sit on a scale of 1 to 100. And they also locate decision-making patterns, and they locate, what drives people and what motivates them. When I look at those numbers, the only thing I can equate it to is the movie A Beautiful Mind. When, he looks at the magazine and he starts connecting all these words, and all of a sudden he comes up with something in the movie that didn't really exist, but in life they really do. So I look at these numbers. I mean, I had a woman one time, I looked at these numbers and I said, okay, what happened to you when you were about 10? And she broke down weeping because her grandfather raped her in the attic at 10 years of age. And I knew something had happened to her that caused a trauma because of the way her numbers were reading. And I ended up working with her, and she told her husband, and this has happened to me over and over again. This happened with another family, and molested by a priest, age 8, never told anybody, shared it with his family. That's why he was so angry, healed his marriage. And I just looked at numbers and saw these things. I could tell you stories like that till tomorrow.
Is this something that sounds crazy to me? Like it sounds to me, and maybe I'm completely off base, that you've, through this process, can come up with a math equation for a human being, basically.
Yeah, you can. And Dr. Hartman, who perfected this algorithm for the decision-making pattern, did come up with a mathematical equation that is going to locate an individual on 6 levels. But when it comes to the behavior, which is, I've said before, it's mad, glad, sad, and scared. Those are the 4 behaviors. Very simple. We're all a combination of all of them, but in differing intensities. When I see that, and then I see how you're adapting, it tells me a story about what's going on in your emotional framework, and I imagine what's causing it, and I happen to imagine very correctly. And that's the only way I know how to describe it. And so, I mean, I was at an event one time, and people were gathered around when they heard I was a profiler. I shook a gentleman's hand. I looked at his hair. I looked at what he was wearing. I asked him what he did for a living, and then I told him what he was driving.
And you nailed it.
I nailed it. I did a retreat one time for some wives of business owners up in the mountains, up in Vail, Colorado. And in the kickoff night, a woman said, I heard you can tell what people drive. And I'm like, well, I got to feel it, She goes, I want you to tell me what I drive in front of everybody. And I wasn't feeling it. And I'm like, no, I don't really want to do that, because you don't want to be wrong and kick off the retreat that way.
Yeah.
And she kept pushing it because she was very high dominant, and she was a psychologist. And she was testing me, what did I pay for here? And finally, out of frustration, I just said, you drive a Range Rover. And I was right.
Nailed it.
So, I got a lot of work from this lady. And it was like, the whole weekend, she's like, I can't believe you did that. And I couldn't believe I did it.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's not a formula. I don't know what it is.
Let's talk a little bit about this, because you threw it out there. We were talking before, the mad, glad, bad, and scared. It sounds like Dr. Seuss.
Sad and scared.
I have a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old, so I'm into the whole, it's mad, it's got,
Yeah.
Give people a little indication. So we're all clearly, are these like 4 quadrants, and you somehow figure out where we tend toward?
These 4 quadrants go all the way back to Hippocrates in ancient Greece. It is, earth, wind, fire, water. Ezekiel's vision of the 4 corners of the zodiac. All of this stuff, no one really knows what it is, but we know that it works. When it was applied to human beings, Hippocrates basically was a people reader, because he noticed that depending on the terrain and the environment people lived in, it changed the way they lived, worked, loved, and fought.
Wow.
And so the people that lived in the high mountainous regions, he said, were vicious warriors. Nobody could defeat them. And so what he realized was, it was the changing environment. It came without notice. And you had to be extremely flexible to live there and survive it. So they became what I call survivors. So that's the mad people. They're always getting blizzard in, or they're attacked by a lion, or they get a hailstorm, or the wind blows them off the mountain and they're holding themselves up by a branch, and they climb back up and they live. Well, everybody else gets blown off the mountain and they die. So the only survivors are the monster people. And so this happens in life now. We come up and grow up in environments. You have an alcoholic parent, or you moved around a lot, or you had all these different issues that create an environment that you've got to survive in. And if you thrive in it, then it sets your behavior. Even though we're born with a behavioral bent, which is called a cardinal trait, we're born with that. So the mad people, they're the daring, decisive, driven, determined. They need problems and challenges. And if they don't have any, they're going to create them. So these people create problems because they need chaos. And they rise to the level of that chaos, and it's what gets them up in the morning. And then the sad people, those are the limbic-driven people. Limbic-driven people are not task-oriented; they're more people-oriented, because they plug into your limbic system, which is it's a fight or flight mechanism. It's very primal. Okay. It's instinctive. So they make decisions based upon instinct, intuition, gut feelings. They can walk into a room and say, "Oh, I got a bad feeling about this," and be right.
Wow.
And not all the time, but most of the time. And so they're very feelings driven. They make decisions based upon how they feel. And there's a million other things associated with that style, but that's the style, very limbic driven. They need a lot of banter and back and forth. They need social recognition and all that. And it gets them up in the morning. And then the sad people are your stabilizers. If you get a dominant influencer, which is a mad glad in your team, it's like standing up in a canoe and the whole boat just starts, they're destabilizers. Those are the managers that fly in, crap on everything, and fly out. They're the seagull manager. They come in and they destabilize the environment, and everybody can't wait for them to leave.
Wow.
Well, they'd be better off outside of the company working on it instead of working in it. But they're an influencer. They need the hands in everything. And so it's crazy how this works. But the phlegmatic is it's the stabilizer, predictable. That's the guy you drop off at the bus stop on Monday, and then you get there Friday, he's still there.
Huh.
They don't, you can predict what they're going to be doing in 5 years and be accurate.
Wow.
But
these are sad, yeah?
Huh?
Those are the sad
they're
ones?
the sad people. And I say sad because they're very non-emotional. Their house could burn down. They could come to work and nobody would know. Or they could win the lottery and come to work. Nobody would know. My wife's a sad because I'm a Jordan River. She's the Dead Sea. That tends to be what happens. Jordan River's married Dead Sea. So nothing comes in or out of her. But I'm like whitewater living with me.
Yeah.
She's a still pond. So still water runs deep. There's a lot in there. And over 30 years now being married, I'm still dredging up things in that lake that I would have brought up on the first date.
Wow.
And I'm finding out years later. And it wasn't because it was being withheld. It just was deep down at the bottom of the lake, sitting there. So whitewater, it throws everything up from the bottom up to the surface. And that's what our styles are like. So we can inundate those people. But they're the listeners and we're the talkers. Then the scared people, the scared people are in desperate need of information because they have itchy brains. They need to know the facts. They're very logical in their approach to life. So logic and reason, logical stepwise thinking, those are the people that are listening to you, looking at you and nodding, and they're gathering the information and putting it together. They're doing the math all the time.
Yeah.
So they're slower. They have two speeds, slow and slower, whereas the aggressives have two speeds, fast and faster.
Yep.
You can see what happens.
Yep.
Why isn't that done? And they're flipping out, and he's like, because it isn't correct.
Yeah.
If it's right, I'll give it to you. If not, you're not going to get it.
Amazing.
And so that's just part of the equation. Then there's 7 other things that we would have to deal with that, have power upon that behavioral base and actually is the engine behind it. So we all behave in accordance to how we believe. In other words, if I believe it's cold out, I'm going to put a jacket on. That's my behavior.
Okay.
And so if I believe you don't like me, I'm going to act a certain way because I'm reacting to a belief that I have about you. But we never see people as they are. We only see them as we are.
Say that line one more time. I actually wanted to bring that up. Say that last line. We don't
see people as they are. We see them as we are. So if I'm really talkative and outgoing and I need social recognition and I need to know you like me so I can go on, then I'll interact with you when I see you immediately. Hey, how you doing? Did you see that movie last weekend? And there that limbic looping takes off and starts going. If you just walk right past me because you're a task-oriented person, not an emotional like me, you're on task, so you're kind of not seeing me, it's a little bit of a blind spot, then I'm going to think you don't like me. Because if I did that, it would be because I was avoiding you. They're doing it because they didn't see me.
Yeah.
It's not avoiding me.
Hey guys, I just want to take a quick break here and let you know about our 10-day challenge. All you have to do is head over to SatoriPrime.com/10day, the number 10 day. And in it, we give you a 10-part video series that is absolutely changing lives, and it's completely free. It's a mindset shift in what is possible for you in your life right now. So I just want to read to you what someone has just written me. And they said, what did the 10-day challenge create for me? In summary, a plan of action. A man with a goal and a plan is unstoppable. Your 10-day challenge allowed me to take all that confusion and fear of my situation and see it was a period of transition. I have a plan. I've taken action and I'm implementing. Success is just over the horizon. And that could be the case for you. So head over to SatoriPrime.com/10day, the number 10 day, and grab your 10 free videos today and create a plan of success for you. Now back to the episode. So brilliant. I mean, I used to have this line that we have it. It's very similar to what you said, that we live in a world that people should be or should respond the way that we perceive the world. And it's impossible. Like once you live in that world, you're just setting yourself up to be upset all the damn time.
That's right.
And what I think is so powerful here is like if we actually knew a little bit of these traits that, for example, when your husband comes home and all they want to do is kind of sit on the couch and give you one-word answers, and the wife is like, he doesn't love me because he doesn't want to talk to me. And really all it is like he's just in that space. It has nothing to do with you, but she perceives like if he comes home and he doesn't talk to her, then that's not love.
That's right. And so again, those are love languages. And so there are different love languages. Like some people, their love language is meaningful touch and words of affirmation. So if I'm not getting that from you, I don't care what you think or what you say. In my mind, you don't love me.
Wow. Amazing.
You just don't love me. What if your love language is something like acts of service, fixing things around the house. Well, if you have a husband that's, a mad glad, well, you ain't going to get nothing fixed. He's going to overpromise and underdeliver, not because he means to, but because that's the way he's wired. I'll get to it. And then you're thinking, you don't love me because you're not paying attention to the things that matter to me. And it's not that he won't pay attention. He can't.
Amazing.
Can't pay attention. If you just knew that, the curse is removed from the marriage.
That brings up a question here, which is, over the last 12 or so years and doing a lot of personal development work, coaching thousands of people, etc., we all uncover these behaviors that we have that have been ingrained in us from a very, very young age. And now with kids, I mean, like by 2, I can already see what my kids are going to be like as they get older. And I want to talk about that a little bit later. But is there a way for people when they learn this? So say a husband and wife come, right? They see, oh my God, that's why you do this. That's why I do this. It obviously alleviates it gives them some freedom and space in the relationship.
Yes.
Can people alter the way that they perceive a situation through, not instantly, but through years and years of just practice and speaking the words differently and getting into that? Can they reprogram themselves?
Yes. Now, let me give myself as an example because I live it. I've lived it. My anger line, my dominant line, my mad is 100. Okay. My wife's probably a 10.
Wow.
Okay. My glad line's a 96. So that's why I don't need drugs. And my wife's glad line is also high. But her steady line or her sad line is in the 80s. And mine's a 5. That's the biggest issue. And so I'm impatient. Now, let me just say something about impatience. Impatience only means you're extremely flexible.
Okay, I need to hear that one more time because I'm the most impatient person in the world.
Impatience is nothing but a sign of flexibility. In other words, when you're a Corvette. So when you're going down the highway 90 miles an hour and the goal is eating at a restaurant and you're going to go with somebody and you're both in different vehicles because you have different behaviors. You're going 90 miles an hour and right when your exit is next to you, I say, there's your exit. The Corvette can get off the road without flipping over because it's low to the ground. It's very flexible on turns. Now imagine your opposite. They're a semi-tractor trailer with 18 wheels that cannot turn without jackknifing or flipping over.
Yeah.
So that truck has to go to the next exit, which is 6 miles further down the road, get off, then get back on and come 6 miles this way, then get back on again, and then put their blinker on 100 feet before the exit, now that they know where it is. But when they get to the restaurant, you're done eating. And you're like, where the hell were you? See, you're very flexible. So waiting for them to come to where you're at because you could turn on a dime and they couldn't irritates you.
That 100%. And the funny part,
the irritation is when you can flex in circumstances, things, or people are not able to flex with you at the same speed. That's what impatience is showing.
Interesting. I mean, 2 things are coming up. One is a funny story. You were talking about a Corvette. I actually drive. We were talking about this, how you predict cars. I actually drive a CTSV wagon, which is basically like a Corvette stuffed in a station wagon. So that is funny. And then the other thing I realized, I deal with a lot of entrepreneurs. And adaptability, I think, is one of the key traits of a good entrepreneur, which means that we can literally do that turn on a dime thing. And most entrepreneurs are very impatient.
Yes, because they're very flexible. You have to be flexible to do entrepreneurialism. Yeah. Because the winds are always changing and you've got to move your sail as quick as the wind. Think of being on a sailboat and, that thing swinging back and forth and everybody ducking. So there are plenty of people who cannot do that. They cannot move that sail that quick. And so
So if you're okay, let's kind of go down this entrepreneurial path, because I know a lot of the listeners are always kind of looking at, should I start a business, or they're starting a business, etc. Are there certain types that are just not meant to be entrepreneurs, and it doesn't matter how many times they attempt that world, they just will not succeed in it?
Yeah. Yes. There are people that don't value. You see, one of the reasons why you're very flexible, because you value your time. Some people do not value time like that at all. And I've seen people who call themselves entrepreneurs, but they're not entrepreneurs. And I've told them, you're not an entrepreneur. And they want to argue with me. I said, listen, you make more money by accident than some of these people are making on purpose. And money's not even your goal. Your goal is to be in charge and to create. And when you do it, because you got a product that people love, it makes you money. But that's not because I want to go make money, which is more what an entrepreneur thinks. Because a true entrepreneur, before they make any decision, they ask themselves one question: what am I getting out of this deal? That's what they tend to ask themselves. The real entrepreneurs, what am I getting out of this? Because if I'm not getting anything out of it equal to or greater than what I'm putting in, I'm not doing it.
Wow.
You see, that is the mark of an entrepreneur, because they're excessively driven to put something in and then get more out.
Interesting.
And some people, they don't think like that. They don't think like that at all. They'll take the long way home, and at the end of the year, you could tally it all up, and they spend an extra $700 in gasoline. They don't care. Because I get to go this way and see these things, which are more to me than money. You see, that's a different kind of a person.
So, okay, because now you're making me question whether I'm an entrepreneur or not. So people that are about actually making a difference in the world and having it not be about the money, but are just really social conscious and want to actually shift the way the world works or the way people think, etc. Are those not entrepreneurs then?
See, the word entrepreneur is thrown around like the word love. I love you. I love pizza.
Yeah, true.
Okay, two different things. So entrepreneurialism is just somebody who's, quote, successful, works for themselves, and has enough money to be considered in the top 1%.
Okay.
So we will take those blanket things and say, oh, that's an entrepreneur. I get entrepreneurs, so-called, that have an idea, they get investors, they invest in it, they're busy. They don't even know how to hire people. They don't even know what they're doing. They call me, they're making wrong decisions. All these things are happening. What happened? King Solomon said this. He said, do not think that the race comes to the swift or the battle comes to the strong, because time and chance happen to us all. And some people at the right time take the right chance, and bingo, you got a formula for something to happen. And then once they get in that, real entrepreneurs know exactly what to do and when to do it. And it's because they have two pieces in their toolbox. Number one, they value time and money. And number two, they want to control their own destiny and the destiny of anybody else that has an effect on their destiny. Those are the formulas for entrepreneurialism. So just because you work for yourself, you love people, you love doing what you do, and you're helping people and you're making money, doesn't necessarily mean you're an entrepreneur, in the sense that the word entrepreneur really has its meaning. There are some people that are entrepreneurs, but if they get hit by a bus, they'd have no business. Yeah. That's not an entrepreneur.
Interesting.
That's somebody who just works for themselves, who doesn't like to be told what to do. So I'm not an entrepreneur. I just don't like being told what to do.
Yeah, same.
But I'm not an entrepreneur, because if I get hit by a bus today, my business is gone tomorrow.
Very, very interesting. This is a perspective I've never thought about.
But to say I'm not an entrepreneur for some people is bad, because they're not human beings, they're human doings. Their worth is attached to what they accomplish.
Yes.
And they think that's entrepreneurialism. It's not. It's called insecurity.
Mm.
It's very different.
Wow.
And some people, because they're insecure, can make a lot of money because they can wield their insecurity like a sword. In other words, their insecurity doesn't own them. They own it enough to capitalize on it.
Can you give an example of that?
Well, me.
Perfect.
Okay. I'm a very insecure person, but my insecurity doesn't own me. I own it.
Mm.
Okay. So I know I'm insecure. I mean, I could be speaking at MIT and somebody asks a question. I know immediately I don't know the answer to that question. And in my chest inside, it's like looking in your rearview mirror and seeing the lights on a police car. It's, that insecurity kicks in, but I override that insecurity and I look at them and say, I have no idea. I don't know the answer to that. And so I capitalize on being insecure in this situation rather than being owned by the insecurity and making up something on the fly and tying them into an emotional knot. So they just say, oh, I guess I don't know what he meant, but he must know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
If you're overly insecure, that's what you'll do.
It sounds like that line, everyone has fear. It's just acting in the face of fear. That's actually courage.
Okay. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the absence of self.
Okay.
Every courageous person on the battlefield was afraid.
Yeah, for sure.
Bullets are flying, bombs are flying, and they go out there and drag their buddy off the field in the line of fire. It's not because they're not fearful. It's because it's the absence of myself. It's at my expense to help you. That's what courage is all about. It's the absence of self.
Do you find that with insecurity, like in your example, that you've been able to own it and kind of get past it because you're doing something for a greater good, where it's like, it's not about you anymore. It's about serving others?
Yeah. You see, there's the two things. There's want and there's need. If I want a wife, I'll find a good one. If I need a wife, I'll marry anyone. So needs are different. Needs are insatiable. They are a black hole. And once you cross what we call the event horizon, you get sucked in and you can't get out. But some people, all their relationships are need-oriented. Their work is need-oriented. And so I knew I had deep emotional needs. When we have problems, whether it's with work or relationships or whatever it is, it's because an emotional need is not being met. That's always the reason for a problem between people. But we don't ever deal with that. We just deal with the problem that creates. We try to fix that. But if you never figure out what the emotional need is, imagine if every time your children had a problem with fighting with each other or fighting with you, especially in the teen years, you said, okay, they have a need that isn't being met emotionally. And you set out to figure out what that was, and then you met that need, that problem would cease.
Wow.
Because it's crying out for attention, an emotional need that's not being met. But we just say, stop it. But we never dig. So it's that want and need thing. So in me, I have three fears, and you probably do too. And the three fears are this. Number one, not being liked. Number two, losing. And number three, being misrepresented or misunderstood. And it's the I triangle. It's what I call it. It's all about me, I. And so when you engage with people, you're engaging in an effort to keep those three things from happening. You don't want to win because you love winning. You probably want to win because you hate losing.
Yes, 100%.
It's a different motivator. It's actually more powerful, but it's insecure.
That is scary, Steve. When I first started doing personal development work, there was this question, this driving force that we were kind of like trying to dig for. And my line, I shit you not, my line was, I'm a loser.
Wow.
That was the line that literally I say it today and I have the full body sensation.
Yeah.
And I say it and it doesn't even mean anything to me, but it just like the effect of it. So when you said those things, I was like, my God, the not being like, that's kind of, a lot of people have that, but the losing thing, that's my biggest driver in life.
So the fear of loss creates gain.
Yeah.
Because you have it in a healthy balance. If it's unhealthy balance, it creates frustration. Or you almost gain and then quit. Or you overdo it, or you overpower people, or you talk too much and you never give anybody else a chance because you fear if you don't look smart, then they're not going to like you. And all these things come in, but you can have a little bit of insecurity and have it be your ally, your best friend. But if it gets too big and too strong, it will eat you alive and keep you in a position of losing over and over and over again because you want to win too badly. And so I always, in working with people, I uncover some of this stuff and I have to tell them, here's what's going on. And I'd say, 40 to 50% of the people I talk to break down bawling on the phone.
Wow.
Just because of the intensity of here's what's going on. This is why this is happening. And if you want to fix it, you got to agree with it. And this is life-changing and it changed my life. You are like a battery. I'm like a battery. You have negative and positive. We have strengths, weakness. Most people will try to coach you to, fix the weakness. That's like opening your hood in the car in the morning before you go to work and breaking the negative post off the battery so your car will run better. That ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't run at all because we don't realize that negative piece is just as important as the positive.
Yeah.
It's just as important. So you got to capitalize on your strengths and you got to embrace your weaknesses. So people ask me, well, how about this or that? I go, I suck at that. What? Oh yeah, I'm terrible at that. Don't please have me not do that because I'll fail. And I've had people come up to me at some talks with some really important people and say, this was so refreshing, because honesty is the best policy. And I do suck at it. I might as well embrace it.
Brilliant.
Put all your eggs in the basket that works and
Brilliant.
You'll be fine.
Brilliant.
And this is what people fear doing. They see what somebody else, they compare themselves among themselves. They want to do that. They're not wired for that. How many people on American Idol that can't sing?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the way it is in business, relationships. These people are all over the world. There's millions of them. And no one's telling them the truth because they're trying to protect them.
What a brilliant concept. Something that so many people miss. And he breaks it down so simply. If you open up your car's hood and you want to fix your car, it's like removing the negative part of the battery. The car doesn't work, right? Human beings, we have our positives and negatives. We have the good, the bad, like two sides of a coin. You cannot survive without the other. Period. End of story. What a brilliant concept. I hope you guys have enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Like I told you, this is by far my favorite interview so far. So hang on to your seats because part 2 is going to knock this one out of the water. So hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you on the next Performance Enhancing Podcast.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Performance Enhancing Podcast. We've taken this pep talk and created a custom action guide so you know exactly what action steps to take now to grow your business. Just head over to SatoriPrime.com/podcast and download it for free. Also, please leave a comment and rate this podcast on iTunes. It'll help us get the word out. Thanks for listening. Now, go and implement. We'll see you next time.
Did you run through doors?